Hey guys, it was 24 years ago that Intel launched their very first graphics card. We've got the Intel i740 with only 8 megabytes of video memory. In 2022, Intel is having another go with their new Intel ARC video cards. I got an email from Sam, he's one of my viewers, and he just bought the A770 16GB video card. He asked me, hey, do you want to borrow the card and do a video? Absolutely! For the test system we have a MSI motherboard, it's a Z590, an Intel i7 11700F, 16GB in dual channel configuration, 3200 MHz. I was working on another project, so I removed the RX 5500 and also swapped the SSD because I didn't want to have to reinstall everything again. And we're using a 700 watt Asus power supply. In the BIOS, I'm just loading the BIOS defaults, then enabling the XMP profile, and I check that resizable bar is enabled. I'm installing Windows 11 Pro, then downloading all the Windows updates, and finally the latest and greatest Intel graphics driver, which is quite large, over a gigabyte. And then I spent some time looking at the driver options, but let's dive straight into some games and then I'll share all my findings. I will test games that I'm familiar with, that way it's easy for me to notice any issues. Dirt 3 is always the first game I test on a system. We're running at 4K, I cranked up all the settings to Ultra, 4x anti-aliasing, and the game runs perfectly fine. We're getting easily over 60 FPS. Half-Life 2 is next, 4K, all the details are maxed out, and yeah, runs fine. I didn't notice any issues. This game is a good test to dig a little bit deeper into some of the driver options. The first one is GPU scaling. I was really happy to see integer scaling featured in the driver, and you can see here me playing around with different resolutions. The image is nice and sharp. Unfortunately, this feature only works on the desktop. It doesn't work in games, so hopefully that will be fixed in a new driver version. Next, I wanted to see anisotropic filtering. You can force it in the driver and that is working. We have some comparison footage here. And it also supports CMAA, that's a post-processing anti-aliasing technique, and that also worked. Now Half-Life 2 does have built-in anti-aliasing which you should use, but if the game doesn't support AA, you can at least have an option to force it in the driver. But compared to Nvidia and AMD, the amount of options you get with anti-aliasing are still quite limited. And this is Far Cry, the original one. It supports 4K, all the details are maxed out, and yeah, handles it perfectly fine. Dead Space is next. This is a good test to see if the VSync toggle in the driver works. This is because the VSync option in this game, inside the game, will run at half the refresh rate, only 30 FPS. Unfortunately, the VSync toggle in the driver doesn't have an impact on the game, and also in the driver it has a few other options to do with reducing tearing. It mentions capped FPS and speed sync, but these options are actually not in the driver yet, so hopefully that will be implemented in the future. In Dead Space I also noticed a render error. There's a diagonal line going across the screen and some of the textures have some errors. Let's have a look at OpenGL performance. Doom 3 BFG at 4K, yeah, runs perfectly fine. We're getting over 60 FPS, no complaints. And here we have Wolfenstein The New Order. That's also an OpenGL game. We're running at 4K, maximum details, and we're getting just under 60 FPS. So it would have been nice to get 60 locked, but still at 4K, this is still quite a demanding game. Here we have GTA 5 4K, max details, and again, just under 60 FPS. We can see a similar performance in Far Cry 5, 4K, all the details set to Ultra, and yeah, it hovers around 60 FPS, sometimes a little bit below, sometimes a little bit above. Here we have The Witcher 3, and I had to go into the game options to disable the NVIDIA hair graphics effects, and then we're getting pretty much, around 60 FPS, 4K with all the details maxed out. This is Shadow of the Tomb Raider. We're running at 4K, ultra details. In this scene, just under 60 FPS, and this is one of those games that supports the Intel scaling, upscaling technology. So I went into the options, enabled that, and suddenly we're getting, just over 60 FPS. So a good demonstration of the upscaling technology, and the game looks absolutely stunning. Doom uses the Vulcan engine and excellent performance, 4K, all the details maxed out, and silky smooth, over 60 FPS. And the same goes for Strange Brigade, another Vulcan game, and we're running at 4K of course, all the details maxed out to ultra settings, and again we're getting well over 60 FPS. In Strange Brigade, just an observation about power draw. Running the game with an uncapped frame rate, the entire machine pulls around 312 watts at the wall. If you enable a VSync or maybe use a frame limiter and lock it at 60 FPS, the computer power consumption goes down to 172 watts. So there is a lot of room to save power and money with your electricity bill. But does it run Crysis? It sure does. This is the game running at 4K, all the details maxed out of course, and we're getting excellent performance. So yes, the Intel ARC A770 runs Crysis. I also do video capturing, not streaming, but video capturing. So I used two programs. The first one is OBS Studio, and here we can see only the H.264 encoder being exposed to the program. So here OBS needs to update their software and support some of the other options. With Bandicam, which is the other program I like using, we get the H.264 as well as the H.265 encoder. So that's nice to see slightly better support, but I haven't seen the AV1 encoder in either of these two programs. So hopefully that's something that will eventually get implemented. Other observations, the fan speed and noise is pretty good, especially if you're using a frame limiter or playing with VSync and the card is not fully maxed out, then it's actually really quiet. Under full load, yes, you can hear the fans, but it's nothing outrageous. So guys, what's my take on this video card? I think it has a lot of potential. When it works well, it works really well. With games running at 4K, all the details maxed out, and we're getting 60 FPS. So that's pretty impressive. And with 16 gigabytes of video RAM, there is lots of growth for the future. What I think needs improvement are the drivers. We saw a lot of the features not really working. For example, the VSync, the image scaling, the integer scaling, and with the anti-aliasing, we didn't have too many options either. Game compatibility was actually pretty good, at least for the games that I tested, and my time was fairly limited. Sam wants his card back, so it's gonna get shipped back tomorrow. And only in Dead Space we had some minor graphical issues, but all the other games worked just fine. That was actually, less issues than I expected. Intel definitely has their work cut out. AMD and NVIDIA, they've been doing the video drivers for a long time, and even to this day, if you look at the release notes, there are all sorts of issues going on, so it's not an easy task. However, Intel is a large company with lots of resources, financial but also human resources. So yeah, if there's a company out there that can do it, Intel is definitely one of them. It's down to them and their business priorities. So we will see, time will tell. That's all the testing I was able to do in this short time frame. The card is going back to Sam. He's eager to play with it himself. Thanks for the opportunity to play with this card and share it with my viewers. It was a really interesting experience. Hopefully you found it interesting as well. I have two videos for you to check out. The first one is my review on the Intel i740, the first dedicated video card, and the other one 10 reasons why the Pentium 4 is a really awesome retro processor. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you soon with another one.